Looking at example 2, using x values, x from -2 to 4, draw the graph of y is equal to -2x plus 1. And of course, the solution. We would need to identify at least 3 values of x. And the values that are between -2 and 4, because that is what we are given there, the range of values for x. So in our case, we are going to select -2, 0, and 4. The next step would be to calculate the associated values of these x values that we have selected. So we are saying that y of -2 would give us a -2 times -2 plus 1. What we have done here is substitute for x with a -2. So wherever we have x, we substitute that with a -2. Now, -2 times -2, we know that that would give us a positive 4 plus a 1, that would give us a 5. We move on to the next value, which is y of 0. So wherever we had x in our original equation, we are going to substitute that with a 0. So -2 times 0 would give us a 0 plus a 1, so that we get a 1. Moving on to the y of 4, wherever we had x, we substitute that with the 4, so that we get a -2 times 4, giving us a -8, plus the 1, we get a -7. We are done with that one. Now, the next thing would be to come up with a scale, a suitable scale. So from the x values, we see that from -2 to +4, according to the graph paper that we have on the right-hand side, we can actually fit all the values. If we use 2 centimeters, remember 2 centimeters is that one big box, dimension 2 centimeter by 2 centimeters. So if we use 1 unit from 2 centimeters, we can actually fit in all the values and still have more space. So we can use 2 centimeters to represent 1 unit on the x-axis. However, when it comes to the y-axis, because we've got values from +5 to -7, finding the difference between the two, that should be something close to 12. So we cannot have 12 boxes. So 12 would not be ideal. So we cannot use 2 centimeters to represent 1 unit. However, we can use 2 centimeters to represent 2 units on the y-axis. That will be the suitable scale. Now that we have also identified that, we can actually place our values in a tabular form, because it's easy to see when we are plotting our points. So now we say that when x is -2, the y is a +5. When x is 0, the y we calculated was a 1. And when x is 4, the y we calculated was -7. The next thing would be to plot the axis, the x and the y axis. So now we label that. So in plotting our axis, we need to be sure that we are going to represent each and every value that we have calculated and the values that we selected for x. So now we see that we can actually fit in the -2 to 4 values on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have up until 8 and up until -8. So we can fit in all the y values. So perfect then. The next thing would be to now plot the points individually. So the first point that we're going to plot is a -2 on the x, which has a 5 on the y. So that one is plotted. Then the next point would be 0 on the x and 1 on the y, right there in the middle, in between 0 and 2. Then the last one would be 4 on the x-axis and -7 on the y. So it should be between -6 and -8 right there. And it should be in line with the 4. So we've got our 3 points. Now we place a ruler. These 3 points must connect. If they are not connecting, then it means that somehow there was a mistake that occurred. So we may need to go back to our drawing board to identify that mistake and rectify it. But now if all things are okay, then we plot our line and make sure to label your line and the axis as well, because that would count. So that's how you would plot that particular line.